does he live in? I don't. He lives like near the Ed Center, I think.
They don't want it. My guess is
All right. All right, we're going to call the Northampton County Council meeting of December 6th to order. Before we please stand, before I do the pledge, we all take a moment of silence for past President Bush. Okay, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mr. Deep.
here.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Locke.
Here.
Mr. McGee.
Here.
Ms. Fargo Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Warner.
Here.
And Ms. Zirinsky.
Here.
All present.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st.
Move to approve by acclamation, Mr. President.
Mr. Kusick, Mr. Dietz. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now we have courtesy of the floor. I have 4 individuals that have signed in. I'll start. Mike Sersich.
Get rid of him.
Good evening.
Hello
I don't know what I'm doing here, right?
Neither do we.
You guys know better than I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm here tonight to say thank you for your years of support for your council and previous councils. As you know, I'm going to be retiring in three and a half weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. And I also wanted to come and introduce my successor, Alex Michaels, he started on October 1st. We've had a little bit of overlap. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to meet him. You can have him come back and you can grill him all you want. That's your prerogative, but I won't be around to help him at that point. You should have received this year's audit report and annual report, so you can have him come back and talk about that stuff at some point. But Alex, you want to come up and introduce yourself to these guys?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm Alex Michaels. I'm really excited to be back to Lehigh Valley and representing Lehigh Valley in Northampton County. So I look forward to working with each and every one of you, doing whatever I can to represent and fill Mike's shoes here. I thank him for retiring, so this gives me a great opportunity. So looking forward to it. I know you guys have a busy meeting ahead of you, but we look forward to continuing the work that we do for Lehigh Valley and representing it around internationally and nationally. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I know I've seen Michael over the years when I've been in and out of things, and we've punched each other now and then. That's just some good-natured ribbing, as I tend to do, unfortunately. So anyway, I wanted to say congratulations on your retirement and a job well done. I think you did a good job, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. All right, now I have Joseph Jakowitz, if I did that right. Easton, thank you. If you'd please approach the podium and identify yourself again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of council. I'm Joseph Jakowitz. I'm a Northampton County voter. I'm also a supervisor for Northampton County Early Intervention Human Services. I come to this meeting very quick and short to ask you for your consideration and a resolution to give all Northampton County employees the same raise regardless of years of service. I know that's something in your budget, and I think that's the fair and equitable way to present a salary increase. I wanted to start and thank the current executive and the administration for fixing the health insurance that the last executive kind of crushed non-union employees on, and so I want to give kudos for that and his team. Third and not least, I would like for council to also honor the Home Rule Charter to have a 2-year salary study done for all workers of Northampton County. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now we have Stephanie Brown. Stephanie, oh, thank you. You just come up and state your name.
Brown. I'm actually a former Lower Saukon Township resident. I don't currently live in Northampton County. I'm here for two reasons. First is because I spend too much time reading, and I read things that make me upset. I read that there might be a steeple replaced with money used from the county instead of finding other ways to do that. And I don't understand that, because you're looking to tear down a 160-year-old bridge in Northampton County and Lower Saukon Township I grew up with. I guess I don't understand what has changed in the world. There used to be a time when things like that needed to get done. You reached out to the community, you reached out to local businesses, you reached out to local colleges. That's not done anymore. The world has really changed. And to know that my bridge may get torn down and that steeple replaced with county money is very, very upsetting to me. The second reason I'm here tonight is a little more complicated, so I hope you'll give me a couple minutes to get through this. I've been homeless for 8 years. My homelessness started in this courthouse because of something that happened that I had no control over. The other thing is that I have mental health issues and have had them my whole life. I have been a victim of Magellan for years. I cannot get the services I need. I don't know if Magellan is up for renewal yet in this county, but I've been to Lehigh County asking them to get rid of Magellan as well. I know they're the cheapest, but they're really bad, and I will come another time and talk with you about that. But recently I saw that the governor just released $5 million in funding to help homeless families and promote homelessness prevention. But what was glaring in the article that I read was that Lehigh, Northampton, and Berks County were not part of that funding, and I don't understand why. So I read some more, and I found out that it actually has to be applied for by a general purpose authority type of unit. I guess I don't understand. How can three counties that for sure make up the Lehigh Valley not be reaching out for funding for the homeless? I don't know if people don't believe there are homeless people in the valley anymore, but something has to be done. I've been on waiting lists for years to get into subsidized housing. There are no apartments that I can afford on my Social Security disability. I don't know what to do. I live in a house that currently has no heat, no running water because the well pump broke in August, and is full of mold from all the rain. Well, it has no heat, so the mold's only getting worse. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. I do not think it is the job of government to be helping people get houses, but what else do you do when you have nothing else? On Thanksgiving, when I had nothing other than a cold house to sit in, I went out to Wawa over in Whitehall to get some coffee because I had no food, I had nothing. And I saw this woman, and I've never seen her before, and she was completely homeless. She was walking around with a cart with all her belongings in a small cart. I felt really bad for her because it's cold, and she was cold. I know of other homeless people when I had my job before I got fired a couple months ago. I used to wait on this homeless couple. They live in an RV. Homelessness is really a problem in the Lehigh Valley. Just because you don't see it, just because I don't live in Allentown, and you don't see, it's not like back in the 80s and the 90s. I don't know. I don't go into Allentown because it's too unsafe for me. You don't see people living on the grates on cardboard, but there are lots of homeless people in their cars. And I don't understand why the counties are not reaching out for funding from the state to help relieve this. If this would have been in place in 2010 when I lost my home, then I might be in a better situation. I might be in a better situation now, especially because some of that money will help if you're in a situation like I am, where the house is pretty much getting to the point where it's uninhabitable. The only thing that I have is knowing that one of these days I might get ejected from that house, but I don't think that's going to happen unless the person who owns it sells it, and that's not going to happen right now. But something has to be done, and something as simple as a federal grant that you could have applied for, nobody did. Can someone please tell me why? Thank you.
Thank you. And hopefully we can check into a few things. All right. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address council? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the county executive report. Mr. Executive, he came up.
Thank you, sir. It incumbent upon us to tie loose ends up of the past before we can move forward boldly in the future. And that's why, as we're required to present to the governing body of Northampton County a proposed budget for which the governing body disposes of, we endeavored to tie up those loose ends. And what we brought to you was the purchase of the Human Services Building. Now, when that project was first conceived, that could have gone either way. And there were critics of the project who made excellent and valid points. And Mr. Warner being one of them, I believe. The fact of the matter is, if we weren't buying the Human Services Building in this budget, this would not have been a good deal for the taxpayers of Northampton County. This governing body is governing. It's to your credit. You are, with the purchase of this building, using the bond proceeds that you passed, are able to leverage almost $1 million per annum from the Commonwealth. That's good government, and that's what you, the governing body, are doing. We brought to you a plan for the first time in history since it's been discussed for a forensic center that's going to happen. And you are finishing that unfinished business finally. It's at least 2 decades in the making, and virtually every council called for the building of a forensic center. And because you're governing tonight with the passage of this budget, that forensic center is finally going to get built. And I know these headlines aren't the kinds of headlines that get the bright lights of Broadway shown on them. We're buying a building. We're building a building. We're raising a building, the Militis building, also long overdue. And we're doing that to provide parking for folks. I watch every day senior citizens who are coming to this courthouse to transact their important business struggle to get into this building because of where the public entrance is. With the raising of Militis, the development of the parking lot that we're going to develop, and hopefully we'll receive a grant from the Commonwealth as well to really make that crosswalk safe, we're going to be able to get folks, especially our elderly senior citizens, closer to that front door. That's what you're doing. It's governing. It's good government when you pass this budget tonight. But these are old issues that we're finally dealing with. And sometimes you can't move forward until you put the past to rest. And that's what this first budget does. And it then allows us to look forward into the future. And you're also doing some forward-looking things by providing for money to match the potential Commonwealth grant from the low impact hydroelectric facility. You are moving Northampton County further toward our goal of it being a greener future. You, with the provision in the forensic budget, the forensic building budget, are going to power that building with solar. You're looking forward green into the future, hydroelectric, solar power. These are terrific things that you're doing that are forward-looking in this budget. You are restoring funding for farmland preservation, for the preservation of environmentally sensitive land, and for the preservation of our own parks because they've been neglected for so long, and for more money to assist municipalities. The more money that we pour into farmland preservation, into open space and environmentally sensitive preservation, the less land there will be for warehouses. The less land there is for warehouses, the less trucks will be on our roads, negatively impacting the quality of life of the citizens of Northampton County. And this is all we can do. You know, we don't have any planning or zoning components. All we can do is acquire environmentally sensitive land and farmland. That's what we can do, and that's what you're doing. You're governing. You're governing, and you're governing in a way, a thoughtful way, in a way that, a bold way, in a way that I sat here myself for a very long time, seen councils doing, especially with so many members. But there's, with the good infusion of the new members, there's also the experience of the members who have been here for quite some time to help us all understand that the past must be finished tonight so that we can move forward into the future and do even more important things. So I thank you very much, and I look forward to the debate. Mr. President, before I finish, when you get to the part-time professional employees resolution,
Yes.
I know we have no right to be heard, but if council would consider hearing us just very briefly on the equities of approving that for the part-time
That's me.
professional
I
employees.
apologize. I had to shut everything down. All right, so you want to be heard.
Yeah,
I don't
just very briefly.
I don't see a problem with that.
Thank you, sir.
I do want to say one thing, though, since you gave such a glowing speech about the governing body.
Sure.
I do think it's a great thing you're doing with the Militis building in the sense of dealing with the reality of where people actually cross. And I think that was a fallback. I know there was questions of liability, but people have gotten hit out here. And you're right. I would not have put the entrance where it was, but that's where it is. And people have to be. People are going to cross the walks where we used to have it, and then it got painted over, but people still cross there. And I mean, if Moravian College can put a crosswalk in the middle of Elizabeth Avenue, which is crazy, we can certainly take care of people who come into the courthouse here. Right?
And if we get that grant, it will be a state-of-the-art crosswalk.
Very good.
It'll be safe.
I always
Ms. Farrar.
faulted myself for that entrance business. I mean, all the times we looked at those plans for the new courthouse, never at once did we really dawn on us or think it through that you're going to have to walk all that distance to the entrance.
And
It's horrible.
It's remarkable to me, Mrs. Farrar, from where my office is. I can see the folks coming out of the deck, and generally speaking, these are folks who are no longer young, coming to transact, whatever particular business they have to transact with us. And if we can get them a little closer in that parking lot, the better.
I know I've always felt bad that that we weren't astute enough to see that.
I wasn't here yet.
I know, lucky you. I was.
I didn't cast that vote.
I wasn't on council, and I had no voice.
Jeez, am I the only one?
Yes. So, all right. Anything else you want to?
And you valiantly took the blame for it. So,
You carry the burden. So, okay. Are you finished?
yep.
Thank
No
you.
one else anything? Thank you.
Anybody else for the executive? Seeing no one, we'll move on. All right. So, we'll go into old business. Now, the first thing we have is the public hearing on the magisterial district justice lease ordinance, and this is for 3104, and this says for Justice Azumis. The ordinance was introduced by Ms. Hefner and Mr. Dietz at our November 15th meeting, and the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at this meeting. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to comment on this matter? Seeing no one? Now, I will point out that there are amendments to the ordinance and lease, and let me just quickly go through those before I turn it over to Ms. Hefner. The title change, the new language is, it's an ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 3,232 rental square feet of office space identified as 248 Broadhead Road, Suite 2, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, from Hanover and Lower Nazareth Townships, Northampton County, Pennsylvania. We're going to add Lower Nazareth Township and address, the address to the pages 1, 10, and 12. All right. Then in Section 2.01, initial rent, we're going to increase the amount from $5,066.40 per month to $5,208.26, as it should have been adjusted as $5,066.40 is the current amount, and it should have increased by the COLA, which is 2.8. Section 2.02, adjustment to annual rent. Please read at the conclusion of the second full lease year and at the conclusion of every other year thereafter, the rent for the lease premises shall be adjusted by applying fluctuations in the consumer price index to the annual rent as follows. Page 3, K.
Point of order.
Yes.
Don't we need the public hearing before we introduce amendments to the
Didn't I
ordinance?
just have a public hearing? Yeah, I did.
You did?
Yeah, I called for a public.
All right.
Public comment.
I did. I don't know.
So I missed it. I'm sorry. Withdrawn.
Okay. Okay, maintenance of common areas, add as a last sentence, for purposes of this paragraph, building shall refer to the structure known as 248 Broadhead Road, Bethlehem, PA, which houses the demised premises. Now, Ms. Hefner, do you want to make, now I need a motion to amend the ordinance and lease. So I just decided to give, if anyone wants to speak now that you've heard the amendments, I'm certainly not going to say no. Seeing no one, who is, do we have someone who will make a motion to amend? John did?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Second, Mr. Dietz. All right. Is there, I'm going to call, is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Deep?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
And Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Amendment passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
All right. And that is the amended. Now we're going to vote on the ordinance that's been amended. Ms. Hefner?
Now therefore be it hereby ordained and enacted by Northampton County Council that it does hereby authorize the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease from Township of Hanover, Northampton County, a Pennsylvania municipal corporation, 3630 Jacksonville Road, Bethlehem, PA, approximately 3,232 rental square feet of office space identified as 248 Broadhead Road, Suite 2, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, for an initial rent of, what's the amount, $5,208.26 per
26
month.
cents.
The terms and conditions of the lease shall be in accordance with the lease agreement, a copy which is attached hereto and made part hereof as Exhibit A. This ordinance shall become effective 30 days after the date of enactment.
All right. Now, are there any questions? Discussion, I should say. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Deep?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
All right. Magisterial District Justice 3204, and that's maybe. And the judge is sitting in the back, as informed. This was introduced by Ms. Fargo Hefner. And if you want to do the introduction, and then if the judge wants to say anything.
Are there any amendments to this one?
No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of.
Now therefore be it hereby ordained and enacted by Northampton County Council that it does hereby authorize the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease from John J. Blair and Susan Blair.
Sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
Am I on the right? Thank you. John J. Blair and Susan Blair, approximately 2,593 rentable square feet of office space, identified as 1404 Walter Street, Bethlehem, PA, for an initial rent of $4,375.69 per month. The terms and conditions of the lease shall be in accordance with the lease agreement, a copy of which is attached hereto and made part hereof as Exhibit A. Effective date, this ordinance shall become effective 30 days after date of enactment.
Thank you, Ms. Hefner. Is there anyone in the public who has any questions or comments? Judge, did you want to say anything, or you don't have to?
No, I just want to make myself.
Any questions for the judge? Seeing none, discussion by council. Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Deep?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
Okay. Now we'll do the Magisterial District Justice 3212, Judge Yetter. This was introduced by Ms. Zirinsky and Ms. Hefner at the November 15th meeting, and the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at this meeting. Is there anyone from the public? Well, we've been going back and forth. You want to do the whereas?
Now therefore?
Now, therefore.
Yeah. Okay. Now therefore be it hereby ordained and enacted by Northampton County Council that it does hereby authorize the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease from James S. Garofalo, 1700 Northampton Street, Easton, Pennsylvania, approximately 2,650
rentable space, square feet of office space identified as 1710 Butler Street, Easton, Pennsylvania, for an initial rent of $3,060 per month. The terms and conditions of the lease shall be in accordance with the lease agreement, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part hereof as Exhibit A. Effective date, this ordinance shall become effective 30 days after the date of enactment. This ordinance was, advertised. Totally.
Thank you. Is anyone from the public here who would like to question or have any comments regarding this matter? Seeing no one, comments or questions, discussion from County Council? Seeing no one, a call for the vote.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Now we will get to the consideration of the 2019 county budget and capital improvements plans. First, we're going to deal with consideration of budgetary position-related issues, and we're talking about created or eliminated positions, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McGee. Start it.
Yes, thank you. It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Deputy Purchasing Manager, pay grade CS 26091, salary of $79,445 shall be eliminated in the Department of Fiscal Affairs Procurement Division effective January 1st. And this was so moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion amongst council? We did discuss most of these on Wednesday, but certainly there could be more. Tuesday, sorry. No, seeing nothing? I'll call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
And Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right, now we will go to the next one, Conservation District, Mr. McGee.
It's hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position for agricultural technician, pay grade CS 2201A, salary of $45,723 shall be created in the Department of Administration, Conservation District, effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Department of Administration Elections. Mr. Gee, you're on stage again.
It is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that one full-time position of voting machine custodian, pay grade of RU 2507G, salary of $61,346 shall be eliminated in the Department of Administration Elections, effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Very good. Is there any discussion, questions? I do have a question, and I was remiss myself when this was going on. I realized it as I was catching up with myself yesterday. This elimination, is there a person currently in this job?
Yes.
And so they will no longer have a job with the county?
They're moving to another position.
Oh, and that's what I was curious about. And I would have asked this, but I didn't, so I'm going to probably be asking these. Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Department of Community and Economic Development and Community and Economic Specialist, Mr. McGee.
It is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Community and Economic Development Specialist, pay grade CS 2301A, salary $47,876 shall be eliminated in the Department of Community and Economic Development effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'm going to ask the same question of this position. Is someone in it, or are they retiring? Or?
It's elimination.
This person's been promoted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and these are questions I should have asked Wednesday, so I'm taking the opportunity to ask them now. All right, any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Locke.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
And Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. And I believe now we're moving on, well, we're still in Department of Community and Economic Development. Mr. McGee.
It's hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Community and Economic Development Finance Specialist, pay grade CS 2303C, salary $52,283, shall be eliminated in the Department of Community and Economic Development effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? My question's the same on this.
Yes, there is someone in it who will no longer be employed with the county.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other discussion, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Locke.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
And Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. And I only asked that, like I said, I should have asked, and I want council, we all know the import of the votes we take and what that means sometimes. All right, now, we'll move on to Department of Corrections, Correction Officers. Mr. McGee, you again.
It is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that 6 full-time positions of correction officers, pay grade PR 0101A, total salaries for 6 positions, $207,193, shall be created in the Department of Corrections effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Mr. Kusick.
Just as I stated on Tuesday, I won't be supporting this because there is an additional 6 positions, but no corresponding reduction in the overtime budget. So, that's why I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Locke.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
All right, now we'll move on to Department of Public Works Vector Control Specialist. Mr. McGee, it's your lucky night.
It's hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Vector Control Specialist, pay grade RU 2501A, salary of $45,763, shall be created in the Department of Public Works Administration effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Locke.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
And Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay, thank you. And I believe now we're on to the Department of Human Services. Deputy Director of Human Services, Mr. McGee.
It's hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Deputy Director of Human Services, pay grade CS 3101A, salary $69,054, shall be created in the Department of Human Services Administration effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, questions? I'm going to be the boat anchor again. I should have reviewed this more closely. We did get it, and I'm going to support it. And I related this at the other meeting. I think it's important, and I know this executive is greatly involved in all his departments and very supportive of his department heads, which I applaud. But I think this is the kind of position where you really need, when you hire someone, to ensure that they are trained from day one. I would assume they report to the director, if I'm not mistaken. Because long after you're gone, she's gone, we're gone, that person will be part of bureaucracy and be staying there, and any new director who's appointed will realize the reality of what it means to be the person with the least job security in an entire department. And if the deputy director's personality is one that is such that they somehow read director louder than deputy in their head, that can be a problem. So I think it all starts with the beginning steps, training, and for what it's worth or how worthless it is, I just wanted to throw that out there. And I didn't the other night because I was in a semi-coma. Okay, thank you. So let's, and no other discussion? Call for the vote?
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right. Now we have the Department of Human Services, Graysdale Nursing Home Fiscal Administrator, Mr. McGee.
It's hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Nursing Home Fiscal Administrator, pay grade CS 3303C, salary $83,046 shall be eliminated in the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
You're good. Discussion, questions? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay. Now, we have positions not reflected in the budget. And the first one would be Department of Human Services, Graysdale Clerical Technician 1. Mr. McGee, would you please introduce?
It is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that one part-time position of Clerical Technician 1, pay grade CS 1101A, salary $13,778 shall be created in the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
And Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Department of Human Services, Graysdale Nursing Home Fiscal Technician. Mr. McGee.
Hereby resolved, Northampton County Council, that one full-time position of Nursing Home Fiscal Technician, pay grade CS 1601A, salary $34,686 shall be created in the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
And Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Very good. Department of Human Services, Graysdale Nursing Home Administrator. Mr. McGee.
It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Nursing Home Administrator, pay grade CS 3806F, salary of $119,009, shall be created in the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, effective January 1st, 2019. Discussed and moved.
Thank you. And yes, all of these, we did have discussions when they were introduced. But, anything I talked, the executive explained and addressed my concerns. So are there any other discussions? Mr. Kusic.
Just to repeat what I discussed on Tuesday, I think Premier did an outstanding job with their management of Graysdale, and I would prefer that we retain them. So I agree we do need this position, but I would have rather kept Premier.
Mr. Dietz.
I do think maybe it's a good choice to switch over, but I do encourage both administration and council to follow the benchmarks, whether or not, this position is paying off as we're going through the quality measures on the reports that we get from Graysdale, that the overtime actually is getting fixed, and then, of course, even the funding for Graysdale. So I'm not qualifying any certain financial or certain numbers to it, but I do think that, we should definitely stay on top of it and make sure it continues to head in the right direction. So.
Yes, and as we discussed, I agree. I think it's both economic and policy, and that'll be this position. And again, enlighten me. Is this report to the Director of Human Services or to you directly? To the
Director of Human Services.
And you will inform them that they do report to you.
Yeah. I don't think that will be a problem.
No, I believe we discussed that, and I believe in the new reality. And we'll be watching things regularly. Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to
Mr.
say
McGee.
I've been paying attention over the last few committee meetings, and I think just what I've seen recently, I'm really impressed with, and I think that's a snapshot of what the future has to bring with this new position. So,
I'm very encouraged with where we're at with Graysdale now, and that isn't even when back in the day and we were actually making money there. I think it's a tighter operation now, and I'm encouraged, looking forward. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8 to 1.
Okay, and now we're going to get a little funky. We're going to get into unfunded full-time positions. I'm sorry, upgraded. I've confused those two. It's just going to cause some problems with people. If I have to. All right, upgraded full-time positions, Mr. McGee.
Now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council that the unfunded positions listed on Exhibit A shall remain unfunded effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
No, this is
Upgraded.
Upgraded or?
We got a page in it.
Can we switch?
We'll blame that on
Can't
Ron.
we just?
Yeah, blame that on me.
Double-sided paper.
Yeah.
Double-sided paper.
With the crown comes the tears.
Now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council that the upgraded positions listed in Exhibit A shall be adopted effective January 1st, 2019.
Thank you.
Yep, got ahead of myself.
And that's on the flip side of your resolutions. Are there any questions, concerns, issues? We could discuss these as well. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
And Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
All right, and now, to the relief of both Mr. McGee and myself, we can go to unfunded positions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council that the unfunded positions listed in Exhibit A shall remain unfunded effective January 1st, 2019. So moved.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
And Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. Is there late-stage dyslexia of some sort? That's right. Absolutely. All right, now we're going to go to increases for salaries of employees hired in 2014, 15, and 16. Mr. McGee, would you please introduce the resolution?
Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the 2019 salaries of full-time employees not within collective bargaining units who were hired in 2014, 2015, and 2016 did not receive an increase last year or not at the top of their pay scale, effectively January 1st, 2019, shall receive a step increase on the respected pay scales. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Questions?
What?
Mr.
Did they have the
Deeds.
numbers for, if we were to include the 2018?
2017.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I do. It's the increase would be between $53,000 and $60,000, probably closer to the $53,000 range. The resolution you just passed, though, has upgrade considerations for some people that are also included on this list. So adding some of those 2017 people in, the resolution just passed, some of those positions were upgraded that would have been eligible, just so council's aware.
So how does that affect them?
Would they be excluded?
If you do the whole blanket 2017, they would not. So they would be part of two resolutions, which would mean there would be two-step
Boom, boom.
increases.
Or we could do 2017 excluding the people that were upgraded.
That's council's purview.
How does that affect the math?
Anything you do is going to cost money.
I didn't subtract those people out.
Do you know how many there are?
Hold on.
If I do remember correctly, the administration did talk about looking at it, during the budget amendments. Are
There's
you?
23.
Is that something you're still open to then? Going into looking at this.
Yes.
Very good.
Are you planning on doing an amendment then? Because we have to find out where the money.
Correct. Yeah.
John has something to say.
John?
Just a question then. If I hear this right, then there potentially are some employees who could receive 2 steps plus a 2% raise?
Actually, can I tack on to that? And I know people yell, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because you can answer 2 at 1, and maybe you'll save time. Maybe not. I really don't care. This is what I was elected to do. Here's the thing. Stay. Come on up. Is it possible that over the course of 25 months, if people get a step and then they're going to get an extra step, so at 4.5 and 4.5, that's 9, they'll get their COLA, which is 2, and then they'll get another COLA. We could be looking over 25 months, somebody could get a 13% raise.
Yes.
That's a lot.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, this is an important issue, and it's just so everybody understands what you're doing. If you want to add things,
if they take the HSA,
yeah.
Tack on another 2% because we're lowering their premium
Right.
into the health care.
But what's the max you can get on HSA that people can have?
It's a 2% discounted premium, and then if you're in the family plan, it's $2,500 of cash from the county up front.
Usually the only way that happens is if somebody's spouse or somebody's significant other has a good insurance plan and they decide to do HSA with the county, I would think. Because otherwise you're probably opting for the insurance.
I've heard a million situations. And,
Again, and the other question...
yeah.
So I mean, that's important. Not that it should make a difference if you feel a certain way. We had the prothonotary. Ms. Ruggiero came in, and I thought she made a very good case for her people. Are we going to look at those pay scales, like if somebody's doing the same job, similar?
We need this.
Sir, the vast majority of those positions are represented by a collective bargaining unit.
Oh, okay.
They have settled their contract and ratified it, and it will be before you next meeting.
So, okay, so the concerns that were being addressed were primarily union employees.
Right, and there are other concerns, namely the spread between supervisors and people who supervise that over time we're going to address.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is an issue with these bumps and pay raises because there was a time I think when everybody got steps, and then they'd get a COLA or not, and some executives decided we're not going to give the step, we're going to make the COLA the raise, and then some said no, let's make the step the raise and not the COLA, and now we're in a situation where everybody's, and I don't blame the employees for not wondering what's going on, and I know you want to address this as you move forward in your administration, and you're trying to. What we're doing tonight, this isn't just what's going to cost next year, it's going to be every year after that. It's going to be a proportionally higher and higher amount. So every time you do this, you're doing good, but all the good is going to cost some money as we move along.
And we have to be careful because we have to watch our health care expenses.
Exactly. So, I mean, so that's when we talk about should we tack on another year or not. I mean, this isn't just an expense for next year. This is a legacy cost that will go on and on and on and on. All right. Is there any other discussion?
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
There is some of the 17s that may get a raise. Mr. Barron, is that correct?
In the resolution you passed, there are position upgrades, and some of the 17s, along with the 2% that's proposed in the budget, will also get additional raise, correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to vote on the resolution as read by Mr. McGee. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
And Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right, next, consideration of 2019 salary resolutions, part-time professional employees. Mr. McGee.
Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the 2019 salaries of part-time professional employees shall be as indicated on the attached pay scale. It's on the back of the
Yes.
page. So moved.
Everybody has that. Is there any discussion? I don't know. Seeing none, a call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
And Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to the full-time employees. And Mr. McGee?
Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the 2019 salaries of career service and exempt employees not within collective bargaining units whose job classifies are within the parameters of the Northampton County Career Services and exempt pay scales, respectively, shall be as indicated on the attached pay scales, attached on the back side. So moved.
All right, now let me just say something. The pay scale provided to council will be a replacement for the sheet attached to this resolution, as there was a change due to the receipt of the salary for the district attorney. There is money in the budget to cover it, so there does not have to be an amendment. So, with that in mind, is there any discussion, questions? Yeah, it's fixed by the state. All right, seeing none, please call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. McGee. All right. Now, we're going to have an adoption of the 2019 budget and 2019 capital improvements plan, and we're going to do consideration of amendments to the proposed 2019 budget and 2019 capital improvements plan resolution. It's in your packet. Would someone care to introduce this? Mr. Lott, how about you?
As soon as I get there.
Okay. Yeah, it is double-sided, so.
Resolved by Northampton County Council that the proposed 2019 Northampton County budget and the proposed 2019 capital improvement plan shall be amended as indicated on the attached document. So moved.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Kuzic.
On the amendments, yeah, I think the one problem I have with this list of amendments is the one that we failed to include, and that's the need for new voting systems that include a voter verifiable paper trail. It is an expense that we will face, and I'm disappointed that you chose last meeting not to include it as an amendment. So before we try to save the planet, I think we should provide the voters of Northampton County with a state-of-the-art voting system. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion, questions, statements on this? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
And Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
Now we're going to have adoption of the 2019 Northampton County budget as amended. If someone would like to, Ms. Hefner, would you like to introduce this resolution?
Okay, if I could find it.
It's the one right after the one Mr. Lott read.
Resolved by Northampton County Council that the following 2019 Northampton County budgets, incorporated by reference hereto, shall be adopted as amended this 6th day of December 2018. Number 1, general fund. Number 2, special revenue funds. And number 3, capital project funds.
Thank you. Any discussion? Questions? You've been beating this up for a while. You had some good budget meetings, so. All right, seeing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. All right, now, we are going to go to adopting the 2019 Northampton County Capital Improvements Plan. Does someone want to introduce this resolution? Oh, Mrs. Ferraro.
Okay, resolved by the Northampton County Council that the proposed 2019 Northampton County Capital Improvements Plan shall be adopted the 6th day of December 2018.
Thank you. Questions, discussion? Mr. Kusick.
Same point, I'll be voting against this because it funds a project that I don't believe is a core function of county government, alternative energy, and it fails to include a voter verifiable voting system. Thank you.
Very good. Is there any other discussion or questions, anything? And seeing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
And Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
Thank you. Now we'll have the adoption of the 2019 real estate tax millage rate. This was introduced by Measures Dietz and McGee at the November 15th meeting, and the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at this meeting. Is there anyone from the public who has any questions or comments on this? Seeing no one, council, it's your last chance to take a whack. Anybody have anything they want to say? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
And Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Let me just say, I've been involved in some budgets, and I just want to congratulate council and the administration for working together. There's a lot that went on here this year. New people working together, different ways, new administration, council members. And I think, as much as people don't want to hear about history, based on my history in county government, I think it went pretty well. And I think that's a tribute to all the people, whatever your feelings were about all this, that worked hard. And so, congratulations to everybody involved. Is there any other old business to discuss?
Just if we could get an update, we tabled the 911 ordinances at our meeting last month. Do we have any updates
Sure.
on that?
Mr.
We met again with the city. We've ironed out what we think is the final language. We should have an amendment to you in the very near future. We'll be able to lift it off the table and pass it. We're shooting for an attempted April transition, no later than July.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So now we're going to move on to new business. And we're going to have a consideration of a resolution reestablishing a position in Court Administration Juvenile Justice Center. Mr. McGee, would you please read that?
It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Assistant Director of Treatment, pay grade CS 27-2B, salary $58,966, shall be reestablished in the Department of Court Administration, Juvenile Justice Center, effective December 6, 2018. So moved.
Thank you. And this was, we inadvertently made a change and eliminated a position someone was in before we actually had created a new position that they had planned on putting her in. So we just wanted to make sure that that was taken care of, which we did. So.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. Well, yeah, but we're not on this. This is something we're taking care of. I know what he's here for, and we're going to get into that. But this is for this specific resolution.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dees.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
And Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay, now, at that meeting I referenced, there was a position, an upgraded, because this was going to be eliminated and a new position created. And there were some issues and concerns that came out of this. And I know there was communication between council, a member of council, and the courts on this issue. And Mr. Green was asked to come, and I spoke to him and invited him here tonight. I guess I'll just turn it over to you right now, and then to council members. This is you had prepared a resolution. Now, of course, council has to do the resolution, but what you basically are here to do is to talk about the job and how you changed the position that you had originally asked for.
And there were specific questions from Ms. Vargo Hefner, and we had a couple conversations during the week. And I asked the director, Alan Fizemeyer, who's our director of the Juvenile Justice Center, I asked him to draft a memo to council, and I believe you all received it, that answered some of their questions, and Ms. Vargo Hefner had a couple of additional questions, so we're here to answer them as well.
But what I'll do is, if you want, I could do it two ways. Let you start talking, or since Ms. Hefner really drove this, I could turn it over to her and let her start.
Well, I think I made really clear in an email to everybody the specific things. So if you're prepared to address those, we could let you start with that, and then I could ask questions subsequently.
Yeah, like I said, we received those questions, and Mr. Fizemeyer put forth a memo to council on the 3rd. I believe 3 of the questions were answered, and subsequent to that, you and I had another conversation, and then you sent the email, and you had 2 additional questions on there.
Yes.
So we're prepared to answer the questions, and the director is here. What he put forth on that memo, and the email that you said was that you wanted to see a change in the title and job description to clarify no clinical oversight, and this position was part of the request. And that was answered. We did change that title, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. But my background in probation and law enforcement, the clinical word to me didn't resonate to me. So I did reach out to providers that I deal with every day, Dr. Gill, Dr. Kraus, and then another provider we deal with, and they agreed with me. So we did change that. So again, I thank you for bringing that to our attention. And the job description was provided to council as well, an updated job description. Did all council get that? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to stop you with that, because I read both of them, and there was no change in the job description. And when I did it line by line, the only thing that had been changed was the title. So the job description did not eliminate the clinical work, did not, we talked specifically about what a person at a certain level of credential was allowed to do by the state of Pennsylvania and not. So that was not eliminated from the job description that you presented with the adapted title.
As far as I know, there wasn't any clinical
Complete
oversight.
and coordinate and complete clinical assessments and testing. That's a clinical function. There's some references to supervision. Now, if you're supervising case managers and you're supervising staff,
Correct.
That's fine.
Right.
Supervising contracted therapists that are clinically licensed therapists, an unlicensed person, an unclinically licensed person cannot supervise such personnel. So that needs to be reflected in the job description.
And we're going to do that. And then what I'd like to do is get to the specifics of what treatment looks like, the question you asked.
Yes.
And we're going to get to that, because I have Dr. Gill and Dr. Kraus here, and they're going to come up. And this is a vision that I had for this center for 13 years, that we developed this treatment center. So I need you to understand that this isn't a cookie cutter center that we have here. This is a center that the people of Northampton County should be very proud of. And I know members of council have come down to the center. Ms. Ferrara has come down there. She's mentored at the facility. She's seen what we do down at the facility. And again, I invite all of you to come down there. I know you're new, Ms. Hefner, and I invited you to come down there. And I can give you everything that's here on paper, but the most transparency you're gonna see is to come down to the center and deal with Mr. Fismeyer and his team one-on-one so you can see what's going on. So what I'd like to do is bring Dr. Dill and Dr. Krause up here so they can talk to you about the center and talk about specifically the treatment that's going on in the center for the last 13 years.
So please, I think it's helpful to have everybody, you want up here now at one time.
Dr. Dill and Dr. Krause?
I'll be right back. But Laura, you keep, go ahead and ask.
Well, you can address that. Yeah. So any questions you have about treatment?
Well, I think I asked for an overview of the program and what you're calling treatment and the distinction between what is treatment and what is the juvenile detention function and how that's separated.
Yeah, there's two. The treatment center is, we have 48 beds in treatment, and there's 4 different licenses in treatment. Okay? So we have adolescent boys unit, we have an adolescent girls unit, we have a specialized treatment unit for sexual offenders, and then we have a short-term offenders program, which is a 29-day program, diversionary program. Security detention has 36 beds. Security detention is our adult, it's a juvenile lockup. It's secure, maximum security, juvenile lockup. That's what it is. Their stay there could be anything from 1 day to 6 months, depending on the disposition of their charges through the courts. Treatment is where the treatment, they are assigned to the treatment center after disposition. They can come to our treatment center, or the court can order them to go to treatment centers throughout the state of Pennsylvania, depending on their needs. So in our treatment center, like I said, we have the 48 beds, and that's how they're distinguished, and we're overseen by the Department of Public Welfare under the 3800 regulations. I believe last time I was here, I indicated that we have a lot more abuse allegations now. I said, just as children and youth is going through the same thing, and they're being handcuffed to the regulations, it's the same thing in the facility with abuse allegations. That's why we wanted to add the quality assurance assistant deputy director of treatment that this council approved at the last one. So with the 48 beds, Dr. Gill and Dr. Krause can talk to you about our specialized treatment unit and also the overall treatment that we do in all the other pods as well.
I would just ask this, if you ask a question, if, for the sake of the clerk, could you identify yourself and your title before you would then start to speak, when you're ready to? Thank you.
Robert Gill, I'm a clinical consultant through Pennsylvania Forensic Associates.
Thank you.
And my name is Susan Krause, Dr. Krause, and I'm a clinical person with Pennsylvania Forensics and also with Safeguards Foster Care. Sorry.
Thank you. All right. So I would say, is there something you'd like to say, or Ms. Hefner, did you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'm hearing an
There you
outline
go.
of who's there, but again, I don't hear distinction of treatment. Like, walk me through what is actually clinical service that you provide for the 48 beds is the treatment program. That's it.
Yes.
Yes. And so advise me what treatment looks like for
I
you.
think I'll speak specifically about treatment 3 first. That might sort of iron things out here a little bit. When Mr. Green came to us about 13 years ago, he was trying to, and I think a very forward-thinking idea, was try to develop a treatment program in Northampton County rather than having to contract out all of these services to other private providers in other parts of the state. We both thought that this was an incredibly creative approach, both financially but also therapeutically. So what you're going to have, you have kids locally in Northampton County that have committed some very horrendous crimes. Now, if you look at some of the kids that have been in this treatment program, there have been a number of kids that have had some very serious criminal activity. And to be able to keep them at home, that becomes very positive as far as therapeutically, rather than have them go to the center part of the state, go to treatment in the center part of the state, come back home, transition him back home. You can do all of this process through treatment 3. So if a kid is going through the process of treatment, now, again, I got ahead of myself a little bit. I think the most fundamental thing that we do differently than a lot of places is that the clinical assessment we do up front. There's a 45-day diagnostic period where Dr. Krause and I, and we have 2 doctoral level psychologists that are, completing their doctoral level people doing their internship, which are supervised by Dr. Krause. So we have 4 doctoral level people doing the assessment of these kids coming in, which consists of a whole variety of psychological tests, but also a number of risk assessments. So we're able to identify very specifically, are these kids we can treat, should they stay with us, and then what's going to be the treatment process and whether they're going to get. So that would be treatment 3. They get 4 groups a week, they get individual, they get family therapy. They also have psychiatric care when we do the diagnostic. If we feel that kids need psychiatric intervention as far as medication, we'll recommend that. So all of these services get to be provided in the county here, which is good for the families that have kids that are in treatment, but also very cost effective, I think, for the county as well.
So after the 45 days, what happens?
At 45 days, then we do what's called a diagnostic, where we bring in the probation officer, the family members, and the people on the pod who have worked with these kids, and then we'll make recommendations. These are the things we think. Can this kid be treated, this child, this juvenile, be treated in the community, or is it necessary for them to be in a more secure facility? So that diagnostic is a period of time where we're trying to identify risk. Can they be treated in the community? What's their risk of recidivating? What's their psychological state? What's their intellectual level? These are all ways in which we can say, this kid is appropriate for treatment 3. This is a residentially based program. It's a restrictive program, but it also involves having a great deal of security and treatment for these kids.
But the treatment is also tied into the individual service plan, the ISP.
Yes.
Through our overseer, the Department of Public Welfare, who monitors that on a yearly basis. Or if there's a abuse allegation, they come in at any time and they monitor the files as well. So we have to tie that in to the service plan for all the children in that.
So which comes first, the ISP or the treatment plan?
What's that?
Which comes first, the ISP or the treatment plan?
The ISP is due within 30 days. So you have to have an ISP within 30 days.
And is that something that you do in your portion, or does somebody else do that?
Part of that process.
So then if not you, then who else does an ISP? Who else? If you're part of it, who else is weighing in on that?
Could we help, and I apologize, Dr. Krause out, because, I mean, we're not very sensitive to height here with our lectern. Thank you.
The individual service plan is done according to, well, what we do is when we do the diagnostic, we do testing. We do cognitive testing, which means we determine whether or not they're going to be able to respond to a normal treatment program. If they're very limited intellectually, then they would probably be going to another facility. So we do IQ testing. We also do risk assessments. If they're extremely violent, we do HCRs 20s, which are a way to assess whether they're going to be too violent. We don't want somebody that's going to be really dangerous on the unit, so we would perhaps send them to a more secure facility. If they're not, perhaps if they're amenable to less restrictive environment, we would recommend that they either go home with outpatient service, or we would possibly recommend that they go into foster care. A lot of times the kids have to stay away from the families, though, because, for example, with treatment 3, the kids have acted out with family members, so we can't send them back into the family unit. But having the facility local, we can then do family treatment, because eventually the kids are going to max out of the system. They're going to be 18 years of age. And so a lot of reunification, if the victims are living in the home, that all has to be taken care of. So we do a lot of counseling between family members, getting the parents to the point where they're able to handle the kids, because a lot of them have their own issues. So we will make sure that we get them the treatment that they need. So basically, if you get kids, particularly with sex offenders, 6% recidivism rate for kids that have gotten treatment for sex offending. That's really very, very low. We also do adults for years.
You're saying that's your
No, that's the published rate. That is through the scientific journals. So,
in addition to that, and I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, it's okay.
but we're married, so.
I
don't do it very often in public. I apologize. I've learned my lesson.
I don't know if you had to disclose that, but thank you.
In treatment 3, there are 3 general populations that we work with. Sex offenders are one, obviously, and they present, in many instances, a real risk to the community. The second population we deal with are fire setters. And trying to find a program for fire setters in Pennsylvania is almost impossible. When you see fire setters, they, no, we're not going to touch them. So the fire setters, we have a lot of violent children that have committed very horrendous violent crimes. So these are people that have difficulty finding treatment throughout the state, much less having it done here. So I think that's one of the other advantages that we're talking about.
If I may, Lori, can I just interject?
Sure.
On that? So I take it, because I know there's similar programs in children and youth, but based on what I know, you have the added component of the behavior that rises to the level of the child being adjudicated. That's what I was going to say. So part of your treatment, and this is, I don't pretend to this isn't my bailiwick in terms of being any kind of expert of any sort. So I'm taking it then that while you may do what you would do in a setting that is more children and youth or normal mental health, this has that added component which you have to factor in with the violent tendencies or acting out along with and parallel when you are doing your therapies.
Correct.
Okay.
absolutely, you have to help them develop some accountability. No one wants to admit to being a sex offender. I mean, so you have to be able to tread that as well and get them on board with you. But once you do, you can have some real success.
Thank you.
And we may not have been responsive to your question as far as the ISP, because we have case managers that each kid comes in, has their own case manager. So the case manager is monitoring their behavior on a day-to-day basis. You have the direct care staff, the supervisors. They also work with these kids. So they have an idea of how well they're doing on the unit. And then you have a psychiatrist will do a psychiatric evaluation. So all of that goes into the ingredients here, into the pot, as far as how we're going to make and provide the best services for these children.
So in the current model, who's driving the clinical bus of the program for the children? The two of you? The two of you with the interns, I assume?
Yes.
So with the addition of this program, how does that, or this person, how does that change?
Let me answer that.
Go right ahead.
She's a county employee, and she's going to be our person who does the checks and balances to make sure the providers are doing their job, to make sure they're delivering the services to us. Not saying the clinical per se, but what they promise to do, she's going to be there as our checks and balances. And
How do you distinguish that?
What do you mean, how do you distinguish that?
Well, like I hear them doing the work, and you're saying she's doing the clinical assessments in this job description as it's written before me, but it sounds like they're doing the clinical assessments.
She
And that,
coordinates and collaborates on clinical assessments. She does not, this position does not complete. I don't believe it
it
says.
states it right here.
What page
Coordinate
you on?
and complete clinical assessments and testing, page 1 of 5.
Well, I think what you're looking at when we have coordinate and complete is she's coordinating the doctors, the psychiatrists, the
Sure,
psychologists.
but she's
and
not
making-
completing the clinical
But she's-
assessments.
But she's ensuring the completion. I think it goes back
So
also.
can we take complete out?
We can take complete out. I also think it goes.
And you know what, let me just stop, because I don't want to get picayune at 8 o'clock at night on a
Right.
Thursday. God bless you for being here. Thank you for what you do. I know you're consultants at this point, or you're hired by the county? Because you're from Reading, correct? Your
Yeah.
program's from Reading. Like, the bottom line is this. These kids, we all agree, are very seriously ill. They're disenfranchised kids because by their nature, they're not just criminals. They have had other disturbing pasts. And so I just want to make sure that if we're doing something in this county, that it is vetted appropriately, that it's clinically sound, and that I felt like it was very rushed when it was first presented. So that's why I asked, as a clinician myself, to see a program outline. I don't think it, because again, when I hear, well, they get 4 hours a group a week and maybe one one-on-one session, then what's happening for the rest of the week? Because they're in a treatment program, and it's for 45 days. It should be very specifically focused on treatment, and then the rest of the time is their detention sentence or whatever.
What I'm saying, Ms. Hefner, we can tell you that what's on paper. Come down to the center.
I absolutely
and
will.
Come down to the center so you can see what happens throughout the day. I can't sit here and tell you everything that happens throughout that day in this forum. That's impossible to do. If you go down to the center for 4 hours or so, Mr. Bismarck can show you what the first shift does, and if you want to come back 3 to 11, we can show you what the second shift does, and if you want to come back overnight, we can show you what the third shift does.
I think I could do a clinical overview and assessment without having to put in 12 hours. I think a lot of people come in and can monitor a program without doing that. I'm happy to come down there. But albeit, I'm not comfortable with approving this position as it is written today. I applaud the work. I think it's great. I think it's a great move to pull it into the county. I just think it needs more time to be refined before I'm willing to say yes to it. And that's why I'm raising the questions.
That's fine. So then I would move for council to vote on the position at this time.
And if I can make one
All
clarification.
right, go ahead.
for all of
We're
council.
gonna move it along.
One of the areas she had a difficulty with on page 2 was supervision of contracted therapists. It's not clinical supervision. I want to get that clear to everybody. We have outside county contractors coming in. She also supervises therapists. Are they here on time? Are they doing what they need to be doing? Ensuring that they know when the IFPs are due, that they're getting presented to the court on time, deadlines are followed, and that it has the components that it needs for 3,800 regulations, the court, the probation department, and the judges. So when I put in supervision, I specifically left out the word clinical supervision. These people also who come into our building need to be supervised, and this is a supervisory position.
It sounds like an administrative position to me. It sounds like she's going to be the administrator on the county end to make sure the day-to-day operations of this program are flowing. Is that a correct assessment or incorrect?
All right. I think, you made
I've
your
asked
points,
enough.
and you put it in your budget and for next year, and you were wanting
This has
that.
been approved by the administrative juvenile judge, Judge Morata, and Judge Corey.
All right.
And
So, and your position is you drafted what I'd say, draft resolution. Now, that's fine, except we would do the resolution, the actual, we'd synthesize it. So what I think we'll do is, what's that?
We haven't.
Well, we have the new for this, city once?
No, I don't have the assistant. I have the assistant director of treatment, which we just voted on. I don't have the new resolution.
No, we voted on reestablishing.
Right.
Right. Well, we're talking about the new one.
This is the resolution this is the information I was presented by Mr. Germain and.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not. There's a difference because the one that we just approved said Assistant Director of Treatment. The one that they're proposing says the position is Director of Treatment Services, and it also has a pay raise, right?
Right.
To
But I don't have that copy.
$61,867.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of that.
It was with that pay scale sheet.
It was with the other sheet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got it.
That separate paper we had?
Well, I'm still voting no.
So, is the beef that you have with the person taking the position
No.
not being, it's
Oh.
with the actual,
It's her, not the person.
no, not her personally, but it's with the person's credentials, taking the position as written.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the real problem.
Yes.
All right, I'm
If
going to
anybody
make,
else would take that position with the proper
If
credentials.
an LCSW with 5 to 10 years' experience were being suggested for that position, I would have no problem with it.
Right.
You have an LSW who's going to be supervising PhD level with, again, the word is written in there, supervising, and that's the way it's written at this time.
if I
It
may,
says that.
if I may,
No,
I'm,
she's saying it's written.
It's not.
You're
So it's
hearing
written
me.
incorrectly. Can you advise that?
Thank you. You're the psychologist, I'll let you handle it.
all right, here's what I want to do. We have this resolution, maybe there's some need to be changed. I make a motion that we table this until next week, the meeting, and in the meantime, hopefully, everybody can get their ducks in order, and we will vote on this resolution up or down, or it'll be tabled again by somebody. But I move to table it right
And I
now.
second the table.
It was never introduced.
Okay.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. All right, I move to table it now that it's introduced. Are you still seconding?
Wait.
You're
Who
seconding?
Just
who
introduce it.
introduced it?
I introduced it.
It's
Just-
fine,
Okay,
it's on the table, so I move to table it.
And I second that.
There we go.
No discussion, we're going to have the vote.
To table.
The table.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
No.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
No.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuzic?
No.
Adopted by a vote of 6 to 3.
All right, so there was no discussion, but what we'll do is, and I'd like to, I'll go over it too, and we've spoken ourselves, and so I don't know if there's a necessity, if the wording is what the wording is, and either people will be satisfied or they won't be, and then we'll deal with it next week at our last council meeting of the year. I don't know if your folks need to be here or not. I'll leave that entirely up to Mr.
No, I don't think.
Okay.
No. Thank you. I could come to them.
Okay, all right.
Not at 1 a.m. though.
I thank you very much for your appearance and your explanations.
Thank you.
From us, an updated
I don't,
job description?
well, I think you just were saying you were going to change a few
Yeah,
things.
we'll change the job.
And I would have the conversation with the clerk, council clerk, on the words that are being changed.
Well, I hear Dr. Krause is gonna.
I'm going to work with Al.
All right, but, okay, well then but we've tabled this now, so we're not going to deal with it tonight. So I would just say whatever you have, deal with Linda.
Okay.
Jermaine, I'll need that by Monday morning.
I'll need that by Monday.
She's
I report
the
to her.
deadline lady with her deadline.
I work best on deadlines.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, thank you, though. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. All right, now, is there any other new business to discuss? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on a train that's out of the station already. Okay, here we are. We have a few resolutions on the agenda. The first is a resolution supporting solar power generation. Ms. Zirinsky.
I'm just going to read the whole thing.
Do you really want to?
Yeah.
All right.
Whereas Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution provides that people have the right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment, Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all people, including generations yet to come. As trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all people. And whereas solar power generation provides many critical environmental reliability, energy diversity, and economic benefits, and whereas Pennsylvania energy portfolio includes a mandate requiring 8% of the electricity sold by 2021 come from renewable sources, including at least 0.5% solar photovoltaic power, and whereas Pennsylvania's renewable energy accounted for 4.5% of the state's net electricity generation, and whereas current federal and state energy policies do not adequately account for the value solar power generation provides to the public, whereas if no changes are made to increase new solar energy development, Pennsylvania is on track to get 0.5% of its electricity from solar energy by 2021. The amount required by Act 213 of 2004, and in the absence of any changes to increase solar, it may stay at 0.5%. And whereas the Pennsylvania Department of the Environmental Protection, DEP, has currently recommended the solar power generation be increased to 10% of the state's renewable energy portfolio in a report called Pennsylvania Solar Future, indicating that the state will need to increase its approximate 300 megawatt to 11 gigawatts of solar by 2030. And whereas the current state and increase of solar power generation within Pennsylvania helps ensure the maintenance and reliance of our electric power system, and whereas Pennsylvania Solar Future aims to bring the state's solar power generation up from less than 1% to 10% by 2030, and whereas the increase of solar power generation within Pennsylvania will contribute significantly to its economy, including but not limited to the creation of jobs, and whereas Pennsylvania Solar Future projects job creation between 60,000 to 100,000, depending on the ratio of smaller systems to larger systems, with median wages between $20 and $38 per hour available in rural, urban, and suburban areas. And whereas solar power generation via solar facilities avoids deleterious carbon emissions being released into the environment, as well as particulate matter, ground level ozone, sulfur dioxide, lead, and nitrogen dioxide. And whereas Pennsylvania Solar Future projects a 9.3% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from the electricity generation sector, which will help reduce health problems and negative environmental impacts of fossil fuel pollutants. And whereas the maintenance and proliferation of solar power generation facilities shall contribute significant dollars every year to Pennsylvania. And whereas Pennsylvania Solar Future creates opportunities to site solar development in ways that complement the working landscape and rural economy, such as using solar on buffer zones, disturbed lands, and in conjunction with grazing and or pollinator-friendly perennials, with a net benefit of free fuel from sunlight and cost savings from the avoided cost to public health and the mitigation of the environmental damages, resulting in a net benefit of over $1.6 billion annually from 2018 to 2030. And whereas the generation of power via solar and other renewables is desirable as compared to fossil fuel burning alternatives. Now therefore, be it resolved by Northampton County Council that we, as a municipal body, acknowledge the contribution that solar power generation makes to Pennsylvania's economy, the reliability of Pennsylvania's electricity grid, the clean air we breathe, and the security of our nation, and as such, urge our elected leaders in Harrisburg to examine all of the benefits that solar power brings to Pennsylvania as recommended by the DEP and Pennsylvania Solar Future, and to consider appropriate action to recognize these benefits to our society. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution will be forwarded to all our state senators and representatives in the General Assembly and to the Governor of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Ms. Zirinsky. Any discussion?
Wow.
Yeah. I did a lot of research on
discussion
that.
or concern?
What is your involvement with solar energy?
I'm a solar energy consultant, and so I consult people on solar energy for either residential or commercial.
Talk into the mic, my ears.
So I am a solar energy consultant, and I consult people on solar energy from residential and commercial standpoints.
Like if I want to put solar energy in my house, I would call you to get.
You could.
You could be a salesperson for solar.
I could.
You would be the
But that's not why I'm pushing this at all. That's not
You're
my
obviously
goal.
very interested in it.
I'm very interested in the environment and mitigating the effects of climate change. That's why I have that job. Previous to that job, I was an adjunct professor of philosophy, and I also counseled people. I include that in my employment now because I want to help people transition to renewable energy. Not because I want the money from it, but because I am very passionate about solar proliferation and renewable energies in general. If I could put hydropower plants everywhere, I'd do that too. That's a little bit more expensive. You don't go to somebody's house and say, hey, I'd like to put a hydropower plant in your backyard. You know what I mean? Solar power is accessible to everybody in the public. And after going to the CCAP and listening to what the Natural Gas Task Force and also the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee recommended as part of their agenda. And last week,
solar is part of their agenda?
It is not necessarily part of their agenda. Okay. What they want to do in the state of Pennsylvania is the proliferation of natural gas. At the consequence of nuclear energy, which we just passed last, if we close nuclear power plants, what is going to happen is there is going to be a natural vacuum that will be easily filled by the natural gas industry. And what that will cause is more ozone, more greenhouse gas emissions, less renewable energy, because the profit that these oil and gas individuals make exceeds public use and benefit.
I think you've adequately answered her question. Oh, I think you have. Is there any other? I mean, let's keep in mind these are resolutions. It's not. We don't have the lawmaking power. Ms. Zirinsky is saying, would council as a group tell the people who have the power to consider this? And that's where we're at. I'm all in favor of the sun and the wind.
I like the sun.
And the earth and water and all that.
We don't
So,
see
all right.
it much.
So anyway, do we have any other questions or discussion?
But that's the thing. We haven't had sun here for how many months now?
But that's one thing.
Hello?
So that's one thing that you don't understand about solar energy, and that a lot of people don't understand about solar energy, is that photovoltaic cells are activated by the full spectrum of sunlight.
Ms. Zirinsky, you're right.
That means
I
that.
won't answer any more.
But that means non-visible light also penetrates cloud covering and acts photovoltaic cells. Do you know what I mean?
Tara, you
I'm just saying.
No, you've been very clear, and your resolution is very clear, and
Ron wants to move on.
well, no, I think your question, I can see us getting into a continual loop here.
Right,
You've made your point, she's made her point. Anybody else have anything to say? Seeing no one, let's call for the vote.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Aw, man.
Mr.
I think
Dees.
that's a yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
I also am present.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Locke.
Yes.
And Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 7 and 2 present.
7-0 with 2 mindful.
Yes. Now,
This.
Ms. Zirinsky has a resolution supporting the enactment of the Green New Deal. Now, I will say this. This is a very
It's
long
really long. I'd love to read the whole thing
resolution.
for everybody, but
I'd
I
love
won't,
for you
and
to
I'll
do it
just trust
too,
that
but
you've
could we
read
go
it.
to the end?
But I also hope that this resolution will be made to the public and that everybody will understand the Green New Deal, because it's very important to our future.
I actually read this before I came out. It's fascinating.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating. I don't see anything in it that really causes me any heartburn or agita. So,
So I'll just read the now therefore.
Yeah, sure. Agita?
Agita.
I don't know.
So now, therefore, be it resolved by Northampton County Council that we as municipal body acknowledge the severity of global climate change to Pennsylvania, the nation, and the planet, and by doing so recognizes that the Green New Deal complies with recommendations of the IPCC, COP21, and the NCA4 in mitigating a climate crisis that ensures a just transition to the 21st century economy by offering holistic solutions at every level, federal, state, and local, and meets the scale and urgency of the problems facing Pennsylvania, the United States, and the world. Be it further resolved that the Green New Deal meets the urgency of the problems facing Pennsylvania, the United States, and the world, meaning the level of progressive ambition looking to transform the economy and the environment in ways that achieve sustainability, equity, justice, freedom, and happiness, and as such, we urge the congressional leadership, state senators, state representatives, and the governor of Pennsylvania to support and implement the Green New Deal and consider appropriate action, adoption, and enactment of the Green New Deal in whole or in part, regardless of the endorsement of the current Trump administration, to recognize the benefit to our society and to the planet. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to our county executives, state senators, and state representatives in the General Assembly, to the governor of Pennsylvania, to all municipalities in Northampton County.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Thank you, we're pondering.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Sure.
That's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Kuzic.
I am present.
Mr. Dees.
Present.
Mrs. Ferraro.
No, there's too many variations of the science.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Locke.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 6, 1 no, and 2 present.
All right, it passed. Everybody got their feelings out? Good. Now we'll move on. We have another resolution supporting the banning of single-use paper bags and plastic straws. Ms. Zirinsky. Now, again, this is, if you want to read the entire thing, I would think for the benefit
No,
of
it's
council,
okay.
I
I'm
think
not
we
going
can read
to.
it.
I'm going to read the now therefore.
Oh, my God.
Fine.
I got it. Now therefore be it resolved by Northampton County Council as follows. The above whereas clause are incorporated herein by reference and are made a material part of this resolution. Northampton County Council recommends that any commercial establishment that distributes a single-use plastic carry-out bag shall sell the bag for no less than 10 cents per bag, and all monies collected in this regard shall be retained by the commercial establishment. This resolution shall not preclude any commercial establishment from making reusable bags, recyclable paper bags, or compostable plastic bags available to customers for sale or otherwise. Northampton County Council recommends that the distribution of the single-use plastic straws by commercial establishments cease and terminate. This resolution shall not be interpreted to preclude commercial establishments from making reusable straws, recyclable paper straws, or compostable straws available for sale to customers. 6. Northampton County Council specifically concludes that compliance with this resolution as to the distribution of single-use carry-out plastic bags and single-use plastic straws by commercial establishments shall conserve and maintain the environment, and as such urge our elected leaders to examine all of the benefits set forth in this resolution and to consider all appropriate action to implement these benefits. Be it therefore resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to our state senators, state representatives, and General Assembly, and to the Governor of Pennsylvania, and I'd like to add to every single municipality.
Thank you, Ms. Zirinsky. Discussion. Mr. Cusick.
Well, I can't support this because I use single-waste plastic bags to clean up after my dog.
You can use them.
So,
you just have to pay 10 cents for them when you go to the store.
I would rather not.
Can
so
I explain
will not be,
why this resolution
Very,
came about?
very, I mean, I know where you're coming from.
I get that you do,
I know
but
you're
I want
passionate.
to explain where this came from briefly, okay?
Please.
So I went to a Chamber of Commerce presentation on recycling. Waste Management gave a presentation, and in our single stream recycling, plastic bags are actually very much a hazard to that recycling program. Not only are they a hazard to the environment because they're made of petroleum products, you know, but they gum up the systems. Basically, it's increased hours, man hours, to get those plastic bags out of that system. Right now, plastic bags and straws are the easiest plastic that we can take out of use. The other thing that I learned at the Chamber of Commerce presentation was that our plastics in our single-use recycling are now not being taken by China, that they're being sent back to us, and they're being put in landfills, and our landfills are just going to keep filling up. So if we don't start to reduce and take a leadership role as elected officials to initiate these kind of policies, then it's not going to happen. The other thing is that Narberth, a municipality, passed this kind of resolution. Bethlehem City Council, Bethlehem's Environmental Action Advisory Council is meeting tonight, and they are putting together an ordinance that is in the works. So I believe that we should put this out to municipalities and to all of our elected officials so that we can take the lead on this. Surrounding states, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and Boston and Massachusetts are all doing this. California was a leader. We can be leaders too, or we could just let it happen. So that's my short and sweet.
I just have to say, I really don't appreciate government getting so involved in our lives and telling us what to do all the time. I take those plastic bags and put them in the bin at the grocery store. And I know there's just so many bigger problems out there. I mean, I'm being crude maybe, but this is like...
Do you know how much plastic is in our oceans right now?
But you know what? I agree. But those are because people aren't careful and so forth. But anyway, I mean, maybe I'm being crude. But you know what? The plastic bag problem is like the pimple on a whale. Think about it. How many of you here have children and you used recycled diapers like I did when my kids were growing up? Or did you use those plastic things and put them in the landfill? How many of you, I mean...
I just put them out in the
There's
yard.
just so much there are many other things that need to be talked about. This is a small step for mankind.
It is a small step, and I would agree with that, but it's the small steps that lead to larger steps.
Government has to get so involved in all this.
Do you have is there anything you wanted to say, Mr. Warner, or is that just frustration?
Sir, I respect your concerns
do
for the world. I
respect
really
your
do, okay? But let's not get too far away from our core job as a county government, okay? 60% of our concerns are human services, okay? It is important, waste, sludge, all those things are in our communities, not a question about that, okay? And bringing it to the attention of the populace is a critical thing. Plastic bags and straws right now, I think at another time, maybe, I don't know where this came from.
It also came out of a discussion with the Solid Waste Advisory Council.
Okay,
and,
well, they should be in front of council also, telling us, okay, if it's that important, and we should
Can we
be acting
table
on
this
it.
resolution then until Serena Davis can come here?
I make a motion to table.
Second.
Please call the roll. No discussion for a table.
Yes.
Bob was the second.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
No.
Mr. Deeds?
No,
No.
you don't want it.
Yep, they,
And Mrs. Farrow?
No.
all right, so give them the
Motion
result.
passes by a vote of 7-2.
It is tabled, and we'll bring it up at some future date if somebody takes it off the table. Is there any other,
Who said no?
9 people.
there's 9 people, there
There's
were
9.
7.
Six to
Three.
no.
Six-
I thought it was 6-3.
It was-
6 to 3.
Who else disagreed?
Me.
Peg
Got you and John.
And me.
and Mr. Deeds.
And Matt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so it was, the vote was 6 to 3.
6 to 3.
All right. Is there any other new business? Seeing none, committee, council reports. Seeing none, council liaison. Seeing none,
Let's just go.
do we have a report from the council?
Went to the mental health, early intervention, developmental disabilities meeting. It's a quarterly meeting. That's the only reason I'm reporting on it. They are very appreciative because when I met them in the beginning of the year, they were a little stressed, to say the least. And they have done a phenomenal job filling the gaps, using the resources that we deliver to them by filling the extra positions. They're doing a phenomenal job. And so if you ever get a chance to go to this committee meeting, I'll report on it more later. But I think I just wanted to express their appreciation to us for filling all the positions that hadn't been filled before. And you could see the results, like at the end of the year. Thank you.
Any council liaison reports? Over the holidays, I'm going to read Joseph Stalin's Guide to Good Government. Do I have a motion to?
Clerk.
Oh, council clerk. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to remind everyone, the next meeting is December 13th at 4:30.
All right, everybody has that? We're all set? Last meeting coming up. All right, a motion to adjourn?
Here.
So move. All in favor? Aye. We're out of here.
13.
Okay.
It's the 13th. The
I can't handle the criticism right now.